All right, everybody, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm talking to you about Canon Lutz or Canon lookup tables. If you're like me when you first started downloading the Canon Lutz for your Mark D4, 5D Mark IV, or your EOS R, or your C100, or your C200, you found out that you were downloading hundreds of Lutz and you could not figure out which one to use, best one to use, or when to use it. So it was really confusing to me, and over time I got to learn a little bit more and more. So in this little how-to, I'm going to show you which is the better Lutz to choose and not have to pay for Lutz like everybody. I've paid for Lutz from other YouTubers thinking my video would be great or look like their video. It just didn't work out most of the time. Some of the Lutz are good, some of the Lutz are terrible. So instead of trying to buy Lutz and get the look of somebody else, you can actually download the Canon Lutz, and when they make a little bit of sense, you can use them. So let me throw up a quick graph here. So if you look at the PowerPoint slide that I put up here, you'll notice when you download the Canon Lutz, you have a 17 grid, which is the best for like 8-bit, like the 5D Mark IV, the C100, the C200, and the EOS R internal. So 17 grid is for 8-bit C-Log footage. The 33 grid is for 10-bit C-Log footage like the C300 or the EOS R when you go to an external recorder like the Atomos Ninja V. And the 65 grid is a 12-bit source that you use for like C200 raw light internal or C300 raw external. So make sure you pick the right grid for your LUT to start with. In addition, you'll see full to full and full to narrow. The full to full LUT will be a LUT that goes from pure black 0 to pure white 100, and full to narrow goes to the pure black 0 to the super whites or pure whites, so up to 110 IRE, so from 0 to 110 IRE. I hardly ever use the full to narrow because it has a tendency to blow out your highlights, but it can recover highlights that are above 100 IRE. So we're going to go to Final Cut, and I'm going to show you some tips that I learned along the way about grading C-Log footage, for instance, for the Canon EOS R, and show you basically the right order to put it in and the different LUTs to use. All right, everybody, before we go to Final Cut Pro, there was one other thing I want to mention. There are two different type of LUTs when you download the 1D LUT and the 3D LUT. The 1D LUT is just a regular conversion from the regular C-Log or canonlog just to a regular image, nothing special. So I hardly ever use 1D LUTs, and you can use them for canonlog 2 and 3, and you'll see the associated cameras and cinema cameras associated with the 1D LUTs. I always use the 3D LUTs because you can convert to Rec 709 or BT 2020, and all that other good stuff. So I usually go from the Cinema 3D LUT, which from the previous chart, you'll know we'll use like the 17 or 33 or 65 grid. So for the Canon EOS R, you can delete all canonlog 2 and 3 LUTs. You never want to use them because they're not made for them. So for the Canon EOS R, just use the regular Canon LUTs. And I usually try to go the Cinema and whatever you're using. So if it's 8-bit, you want to use the Cinema 8-bit, which is the 17 grid, and then full to full to BT 709 or to Rec 709. So I'll show you in Final Cut here in a second. I just wanted to show you this real quick because this was additional confusion when you download the Canon LUT pack. So let's head over to Final Cut. Now I'll show you the basic order of operations and how I do things. Thank you. All right, everybody, welcome back to Final Cut Pro. And here I imported a shot from the Canon EOS R. It's an 8-bit 1080p shot. So we just got to keep that in mind when we're looking for our LUTs. There are a couple ways of loading LUTs in Final Cut Pro. You can go over here to Info and add your camera LUT here. You do not want to do it from here because you cannot change the mix or the strength of the LUT. You're stuck with it. So I highly recommend you do not do it from here. I recommend using something like MLUT or Custom LUT, and we'll go through that in a second. So we'll go over here back to our video. We'll go over here to our effects panel, and we'll go over to the color. So the first thing we want to do is check the exposure, the white balance of the shot before we add a LUT. So I like using the color board. Some people like using the color wheels. So I'm assuming my white balance is going to be correct. So I'm not going to go through that. And I'm going to put a color board onto my clip. And then I'm going to put a custom LUT onto my clip. So notice the order of operations. If you get these backwards, you can just drag and drop them above each other or below each other. So you just want to do it in this order to make sure, because the LUT's assuming your white balance is correct and your exposure is correct. So let's go over to our clip, check our exposure. We'll look at our RGB parade, and we'll mess with it here. Oops, saturation. You know, we can bump the saturation up a little bit before. Some people like do it before. Some people like doing it after. I usually do it after because the LUT does add some saturation to the shot. So we'll definitely check our exposure, check our highlights here, make sure we're below 100. Check our shadows, make sure we're above 0. And our midtones we'll play with to give it a little bit contrast here. So just a simple quick adjustment. We'll go back to our video here and we'll go to custom LUT. Now here is your mix or your strength setting. I want to do mine in Rec 709. Some people like 2020, which is the up and coming color space standard, but for now we'll do the Rec 709. And here we go to LUTs, and these are some of the LUTs I've used before, but I'm assuming I haven't used LUTs, I'm going to choose a custom LUT. So here, when we go over to what we've downloaded from Canon, let me make this bigger, you'll see all kinds of stuff. So this is an 8-bit 1080p, so we want the 17 grid 3D LUTs. So we'll go full to full because I want to do 0 to 100 IRE. I don't want to do 0 to 110 RE or the super whites because I didn't shoot in high dynamic range or wide dynamic range. So we'll go here to full to full. So this is the EOS R, so we want to select one of the ones that say canonlog. We do not want canonlog-2, we do not want canonlog-3 because this isn't a C200, C300 or anything like that. We're not going to use DCI P3 because this isn't a cinema camera, and we didn't shoot in the neutral color space of BT709 or BT2020, so we're not going to use these either. If you shot in the neutral color space on your Canon EOS R, then you would come down and use like BT709 Canalog, wide dynamic range, or if you shot in the neutral BT2020, you would come down here and use this Canalog. But we shot in the cinema of our Canon EOS R, so we're going to go up to the cinema ones, and then since it's the EOS R, we're going to use Canalog, make sure there's no 2 or 3, and we want BT709, but we don't want wide dynamic range because we shot in a regular 0 to 100 IRE color space. So we're going to select the cinema Canalog to BT709, and this is just reiterating it's 17 grid and full to full range. So let's go ahead and open that up. And it said I've used it before and doesn't want to put it on my quick pick list. That's all this is saying. And yes, we can replace it, sure. Now, if you notice, this looks terrible because the strength of the LUT is 100%. So that's why we don't want to use the LUTs from the info tab and throw it on that way. We want to do it this way. And if we could just easily dial down this LUT to about 40 or 50%, make it look better. And now we can go back to our color board and check our exposure and saturation. And you see how the LUT messed with the exposure a little bit. So we can play around with this, make it look a little better. You know, if you want, you can boost your saturation a little bit. Let me close this effects tab. And that's a quick order of operations for using LUTs. And this looks really good. So this was shot, you know, around midday, in the middle of the day, and this still looks good. And of course, I got a neutral density filter on, which helps, of course. So that's the easy way of doing this. Hopefully this helped you. And if you have any comments or if you think I'm doing something wrong, please let me know. But this took me a long time to figure out, and I couldn't find it anywhere, somebody explaining it. You know, a few YouTubers explain parts, but not all of it. So hopefully this helped you, everybody. Have a great day or night, and happy shooting. Thank you.